Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So in today's card making video, I'm going to be showing you how to get a crisp white embossed image on black cardstock. It's something that a lot of people struggle with, and so I just want to show you how I get a crisp image on black cardstock and some of the steps that I take to make sure I get a really good image. So first of all, I'm using Wow Opaque Bright White Superfine Embossing Powder. And I like to use Superfine because then it captures all the detail on your stamps. So if you're using a detailed stamp, Superfine embossing powder is going to be the one to use. And also for stamping sentiments, which is what a lot of people are often stamping on black cardstock for. Now I've got my Wow embossing pad and I've got the Reinker here, which is the Seth Apter inspired mixed media brush. And this is the tool that Wow are recommending to refill your ink pad. And so another thing that you need to make sure of is that your ink pad is nice and juicy. So you can see the refill has got like a little brush on it. So you can use this for mixed media ideas, but you can also use it to re-ink your embossing pad. And I'll show you how to do that in a moment, though my ink pad is quite juicy, so I don't need to completely re-ink it. I've got an anti-static powder bag, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. And I'm going to be using the Garden Kitties stamp set from Gina Designs. Now, I know cats are not everybody's thing. They're definitely mine. I've got a lovely little black cat. And so I love this stamp set and I haven't really had a proper chance to play with it yet. So don't worry if cats are not your thing. You can still take any of these little techniques, hints and tricks and tips and use them with whatever stamps you've got in your stash. So I've got a piece of black cardstock, which is 5.5 by 4.25, and I'm using my anti-static powder bag over it. The reason I'm using that is because I've touched the cardstock, so any marks or fingerprints or greasy marks from my hands or sweat, if it's on that cardstock, your embossing powder is going to stick to it. So it's not to stop the embossing powder, because Wow's embossing powder is already treated for anti-static. It's more about the cardstock. And this is just how you re-ink your ink pad as well, if you're wondering. There is a full tutorial on the Wow page, so I'll try and link that if I can. But yeah, it's just a case of brushing the refill onto your ink pad. And as I said, my ink pad's quite juicy at the moment, so I'm not going to re-ink it properly, but I just wanted to show you how it works. Just going back to the cardstock as well, black cardstock is quite porous. And so if you're using quite a poor quality black cardstock, what happens is when you use the embossing ink, it gets absorbed into the cardstock really quickly and then it dries out before you've even had a chance to add your embossing powder. So if you're really struggling with white heat embossing, just try changing the black card that you're using. There's a variety of really good quality black cards on the market. I'll leave a few in the description box below. I really like using the Pink Frog smooth black cardstock, and Creative Craft Products have also got a really nice smooth black card. So yeah, I'll leave them linked below. So I've lined my stamp up and I've got it in my stamping platform, and I'm just going to use the anti-static powder bag again just because the stamps touch the card already, and so I just want to make sure that there's no grease or transferred ink on the cardstock. And then I'm going to go ahead and ink up my stamp with the Wow embossing ink. And so I'm making sure that I've got lots of nice, good coverage. One thing I love about the Wow embossing ink pad is that it's quite a firm pad. And so you don't get it, it doesn't like squish into the stamp. So you don't end up with a bit of a mess. And also it means that you get a really good contact with the stamped, the raised stamped areas. So then I'm going to go ahead and just add lots of pressure and make sure that I get even pressure all over the stamped image so it transfers onto the black card. And you'll see as I bring it up to the camera that image has transferred perfectly. I am going to do it a second time just to be 100% sure. You know me, I don't normally like using my stamping platform. I prefer using an acrylic block. But of course, if you want to make sure that your image is 100% crisp first time round, a stamping platform can really help with that. So maybe try that. If you've not got a stamping platform and you're struggling with heat embossing, then try using a stamping platform. It might just make it a little bit easier for you. And of course, if you miss any bits, you can go back in again. So you can see there, I've got that lovely inked image, and it is a really detailed stamp. So I just thought this was a really good way of showing you that even with detailed stamps, you can get a crisp white heat emboss on black card. So I'm going to come in with my embossing powder now, and I've got a scrap of white paper underneath, and I'm just going to tip that powder all over the card panel. Give it a nice little tap to get off any of the excess, tap it with your fingers, and then look at that. That is really, really crisp. If there's any stray bits, turn it over and give it a gentle flick. But I think that's come out beautifully first time. There's one tiny stray bit down the bottom and I'm just going to grab a little paintbrush. And so again, this is something that you can do. If there's one or two bits, just take a paintbrush and gently dust them off. But yeah, I think this is a really good, easy way of getting a nice crisp image. And then what I'm going to do is pop the excess back in the pot. And so you can use that scrap of paper, a bit like a funnel, and then just make sure the lid is nice and tightly on so that you don't get a mess on your desk. Now I've got my Wow Heat tool, it's heated up to the side of me. I've got it on the hottest setting, which is setting number 2. And then the next tip is to heat emboss from underneath. So you want to make sure that you heat set from underneath so that you don't blow any of the powder off of the image and any stray bits don't end up wandering around the card panel. Heat setting from underneath can take a moment or two longer than heat setting from the top, but I guarantee you're going to end up with a much smoother, nicer heat embossed image. And you can see that here, even though it's a really detailed stamp, we've got that beautiful white crisp heat embossing on the black cardstock. So give some of these tips a try if you're struggling. Try using a better quality black card, try using your heat tool from underneath, try using an anti-static powder bag, try using a Superfine embossing powder, and yeah, just give it a go and see if you can get some better results. So we're going to turn this into a card now, and I've got this A2 nesting die set from Creative Craft Products, and I'm just going to work out which layers I want to use. I want to die cut 2 layers from the panel that we've created, and then I'm going to use 2 of these stitch dies to create matte layers from white cardstock. Now I've got a magic mat from Craftelio. I'm just trying it out at the minute, and sometimes I'm struggling if my mat's warped a little bit and my dies have warped a little bit. It's not really holding the die in place, so I'm still having to use a little bit of low tack tape. But anyway, it's at least saving me damaging a cutting plate constantly. So I've die cut the first layer out, and then I've just die cut another layer from the middle of that black card panel. And off camera, I've die cut the corresponding matte layers from white cardstock. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue the black layer to the white matte layer that I've created. So I'm using some Belly Arts glue here. I've got the fine tip adapter in it, and I really am enjoying using this glue. I'm loving the fact that it's so fine detailed. You really can get the smallest amount of glue, so it's great for intricate die cuts. But once they're all stuck down, I've just used my magnets there to hold the other layer down while it just grabs. And then we can go ahead and pop some foam tape on the back. And this is how it's going to look when it's layered up. So you're kind of going to get that whole image put back together again, but with some layering. First though, I'm going to just stamp a sentiment, and I'm going to use one from the stamp set which says "You are perfect, just the way you are." And I'm going to add some clear heat embossing powder to that and just quickly heat set that from underneath. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp one of the cats in some VersaFine Claire Nocturne black ink. I haven't used the stamp yet, so I'm just using my fingers just to go over it, just to take off any residue from the factory when it's made. And then I'm going to go ahead and add lots of ink and make sure it's nice and well covered before I go ahead and stamp it out. I'm just using my clear acrylic block for this. Once that's stamped out, I'm going to go ahead and add some clear embossing powder to the cat as well. Quickly heat set that from underneath, and then we can pop the excess back in the pot. And then I've got the corresponding die for the cat, and then I'm going to use one of those nesting dies from the A2 dies that we were using to just die cut the sentiment out. And then we can go ahead and put our card together. So I've got a side folding A2 card blank today. I know I'm in the UK, and I know A2 cards are a bit tricky to get hold of, but I actually really love the shape and size of these cards. I think they just work really well with a lot of the products that I buy, but you can definitely adapt this to any size card that you like to make. I know not everybody likes to make the same sized cards, but if you are in the UK and you're wanting to make A2 cards, then Craftstash sell US sized cardstock, so you can get 2 card blanks from each layer of cards. So I'll leave a link to that in the product description below. And I just really love the cardstock. It's great for ink blending. They do it in an A4 size as well. So yeah, anyway, I've layered those card layers together now, and I've used some foam tape between the layers just so that there's some dimension. I'm going to add a little bit of foam tape behind the sentiment as well, and then I'm just going to play around with the layout until I'm happy with where I want that cat to go. I am going to need to double up the foam tape behind the cat because obviously we've already got that layer propped up, and I really want it to sit kind of next to the sentiment. So that's why I'm going to double up the foam tape there. But then that'll be the finished card. I'll add some close-up photos and I'm going to add a few little gems off camera. But yeah, I really hope this tutorial has given you a few little ideas of how you can get a lovely crisp embossed image on black cardstock using your white embossing powder. I hope some of these tips really help. Don't forget to leave me a comment below, and if you've got any questions about heat embossing, don't forget to leave them for me. I do respond to all my comments, even if there's sometimes a little bit of a delay. But I do make sure to reply to everybody. So thank you so much for joining me. As always, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. If you're not subscribed to my channel, then please consider subscribing. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.